And the standard of proof or like the expectation for being correct is so lopsided that I'm like, no way. This can't be the case that this guy was right about maybe this one thing and now you trust everything he says implicitly when he was wrong about so many other things.
Yeah. And that is the biggest dilemma. Like everyone, and I can't knock Joe Rogan's hustle. Like he's doing his thing, but to go to him for medical health advice when it comes to, example, COVID-19, maybe, hey, call me crazy, but maybe we shouldn't listen to him. Maybe we shouldn't listen to the podcaster giving health advice. So one thing that I've been challenging myself, and especially, throughout my, adventure through politics in this past few years, is understanding that no one's never, ever going to be perfectly 100% aligned with everything that you believe. Every perspective or opinion you have, you're not going to find someone that's 100% in alignment with you. So a lot of people, get off your high horse, get off your pedestal, and understand you still have allies within people. And one person, Destiny. Like, yes, I disagree with like 25%, almost 30% of everything he says. You know what I'm saying? I've been watching him for the past maybe year and a half, and he says some pretty crazy things. Like some things you might have to whoop on him, and you might be justified in doing so. But for the most part, we need to make sure that we're not nitpicking for small things that don't matter, and understand for the Democratic Party to get to where we need, allies. And Destiny is, and I think he even said it, he's a liberal. He's right in the middle, not progressive, not, Republican, liberal as can be. I'm a progressive, but I do understand if we want to get this country back to where it needs to be, you can't go over liberal and then get to progressive. At least in my viewpoint, you have to get the country back to a liberal standpoint and then slowly push to progressive. I mean, I think that makes sense. So we have to understand that we have to find allies that at least align to some things and build a team like that. Look at the Republican Party. Like I said, Vivek may hate Trump's guts. Everything that he says can make Vivek sick to his stomach. But Vivek understands there's some things he wants to get implemented. So what is he going to do? Smile to the camera. Trump is amazing. I need to work on my Vivek voice. But he's going to say, Trump is amazing, the greatest president to ever walked in that White House. And he's going to do amazing things. Like, he has to play that up because he knows it's a bigger cause that he's working for. I wish Democrats would understand that. Like, hey, all the nitpicking, and Kamala didn't do this, and Kamala wore that red dress, and like, shut up. You are defeating yourself. And we need to learn how to work as a team instead of working against each other and then the Republican Party. That's doing too much. So let's listen to Destiny on what makes him him, and maybe we can incorporate some of the things that makes him, the face of liberal party. And then maybe we could take some of that things, incorporate it into our own political movement, our own political life, and learn something from it. Boy, I hope that sounds good. I think it sounds good.
we're in the presidential debate. So it went from sort of, X being the fringe to X, being policy. Uh-huh. And so one of the things I want to talk to you is, how did we move from, and because you've debated all of these cats, how did we move from this sort of fringe, conspiracy theory world to all of these people moving into the sort of mainstream and debating, people online and basically bypass all this sort of mainstream media?
I mean, there's like 5 or 6 different psychological phenomenon, I think, that underpin kind of that shift. I guess one thing I'd start with is, have you seen the movie Bruce Almighty?
Mm-hmm, sure.
there's a very deep, I don't know if I'd say it's deep or not, or maybe this actually came from Futurama, but there's a part where God says something along the lines of, when people know, or when you've done something really well, people don't know you've done anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have an issue in society where there's a lot of stuff that runs well, but we don't know why it runs well, and so we take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've taken things for granted, it's very easy to look at a thing and go, well, this is probably total bullshit. You know, we can go to any restaurant we want and more or less get food and be fine, and we don't really think about how much goes into me ordering a thing to eat and eating it and trusting that.
Sure.
That there are so many steps in transportation, refrigeration, the FDA, there's so much going on. Yeah. But if you don't know anything, right, when you don't know anything, everything can become a conspiracy. And I think that the lack of understanding of like basic civics, basic science, like how the government works, institutions, because we don't have the understanding and nobody spends time defending them because you take them for granted, now everybody is questioning everything. And and then there are other things.
Well,
And that's something that I found myself, especially when I first started this channel, you know, being interested in politics and having those conversations and, you know, being just optimistic and thinking that I'm going to have some really amazing, engaging conversations with people on the other side of you know, any conversation. One, I lied to myself. That is far from true. Like, you might meet the one, but other than that, conversations are pretty trash. But just relearning a lot of things. And at first I felt kind of stupid doing that. You know, looking up YouTube videos of basic civil responsibilities of the government. You know, just the basic stuff. And, you know, if you've been a subscriber to this channel for a few weeks, you notice I started posting basic questions in my community page. Because sometimes, and I get the results, some people don't know some of the basic things. If you don't know the basic functions of something that we're trying to have a big conversation with, if you don't know the smaller details of it, how can you properly engage in that conversation? And like you said, then if you don't know, what you're going to substitute with what you don't know is conspiracy. And especially if someone makes a conspiracy sound really convincing. If you don't know, you're going to be like, maybe that's why that's working like that. And then next thing you know, you think the earth is flat. It's like, you need to educate yourself on things you don't know, for sure. And things that you run up against, you know, like Doge. You know, when you know, Elon Musk and Vivek wants to, you know, cut, you know, efficiency in, you know, bureaucracies, I need to brush up on all these institutions that they want to cut. I need to do a little reading so I can be in the conversation. But if you don't do that, and someone asks you, or you're watching this video, you comment something crazy that you don't know about, you look stupid. You know, so educate yourself. I know it sucks. It's not sexy. It's not fun. Well, if you're a nerd like me, it's kind of fun. A little sexy. But other than that, you have to do it. That's the working out in the gym. And then you get to flex and show your muscles, which, you know, I got a little bit. But you have to do the hard work in order to reap the benefits of knowing some shit. Like, simple.
Also, you know, there's a lot of, you know, which we delve into the show as well, like disinformation, misinformation. I mean, the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, openly says, yes, we're trying to fuck your shit up. You know, the Free Syrian Army, Iran, North Korea, which I've been to 4 or 5 times, will tell you how they do it. I've been into the rooms where they do it. Russia, you know, I've talked to Lavrov, the foreign minister, about that, and I'm like, why are you trying to, you know, and he's like, you have the ruble. You put sanctions on it, you're trying to screw up my country. We are openly trying to screw up your country. So there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation going out there. Now, how about jumping into our first big topic that you...
All right, now how about we don't? We're going to go to the next part. And of course, you know, if I can remember, go ahead and watch this original video. It's an hour and 26 minutes long. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go through a whole entire video, but I do have, you know, some good moments, or at least in my opinion, that's worth talking about. 'Cause that's what this channel is all about.
Now finding out that a lot of that was covered up, and that's government testimony. That's Fauci's testimony. That's the Senate. That's the Surgeon General of America. And I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I started digging in because I'm like, hold on a second. I was part of the fucking media saying, yeah, get fucking vaccinated, you know. And then now you're like, hold on. Now everybody's saying that all this shit, you know, is happening. And I've had friends who've had heart attacks. There's a certain kind of genetic disorder that was exacerbated by it. And you're like, hold on a second, you know. And so I feel duped.
Okay.
Go.
Whew, okay. I talked before about this foundational issue with like truth seeking, that we're not naturally truth seeking people, right? So here's a second foundational thing that I wish we could all start with. And because we don't start here, it destroys the conversations, okay? Sometimes people can make mistakes, but in today's media landscape, nobody makes mistakes. It's always a conspiracy. And when I say conspiracy, I don't mean conspiracy, but like there's like a plot to like destroy the country, right? Yeah. So I would never sit here and say nobody got anything wrong about lockdowns, about school lockdowns, about, you know, vaccines, whatever. I'm not going to say that nobody got anything wrong. But what I don't like is that when the other side starts with the foundation of they lied to us intentionally to put microchips on us and fuck us over, whatever.
Right.
Well, now when we start the conversation over there, this is something that I think is a crime relating to the COVID era. Is we never got to have good conversations about what should a vaccine mandate look like? What should the appropriate level of testing look like? What should lockdowns look like? Like, were some of these too far, not far enough? Because instead it's, well, did Fauci become a billionaire when he was
became politicized.
I don't even...
And that is something that I was experiencing myself. You know, just trying to learn, you know, I'm pretty sure everybody was trying to learn what you're putting into your body. Is it really necessary? You know, can your own immune system kind of fight off whatever is coming your way? You know, this, that, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. Yes, we were all trying to learn that. But one thing that we do have to understand, especially, you know, Monday quarterbacking, you know what I'm saying? We can look, you know, 5 years ago and say, hey, this is what we did wrong. This is what we did right, yada, yada, yada. Is understand that, one, we should have been able to have grown-up conversations, like you said, on how that should have been rolled out. But most importantly, we should be able to look at what didn't work, what did work, what was misinformation, what was kind of true. So if something like this happens again, we're not chasing our tail and doing the same stupid things again. But we're not having those conversations. Like, we are, you know, expecting people to, you know, not learn from things. And one thing that I learned, that I understand about science is your opinion is always going to grow. You know what I'm saying? Nothing in science, or, you know, very few things, but mostly things in science are going to grow in opinion, you know, and we can't never set and just think that something's going to be true all the time. You know what I'm saying? We can learn of, you know, what was the pros and cons with, you know, these vaccination that were, you know, pushed out really quick. Can we learn on how to make sure that we're speaking to the public about whatever they're putting out into a more obtainable way, so where people are not confused and rushing to conspiracy theories? Like, can we do that? Can we trust scientists and people that dedicate their lives to doing things like this? Can we have them in the forefront of these conversations and not Dr. Phil? I don't even know if he's a real doctor, but he's in the middle of these conversations. It's like, I don't want to listen to a TV doctor. I want to listen to the real scientists who are pushing this stuff out. But no, you know, we lose the conversation and we start going into some weird things, and it's like, that's not beneficial to people.
I don't even like to say politicized, but it's just when the foundational motivational assumptions start off so corrupt, now you have to waste so much time arguing over like.
See, I've never even heard that Fauci became a billionaire.
Oh, that was one of the big ones. Is he was invested in all these companies and he intentionally lied to us.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Sure, but I will say that, like, And here's another issue too, is people will point to times where a big one was over masks in the beginning. Well, I think they did admit, they were like, well, we didn't want people to buy up all the N95s and we weren't really sure, so we just told people to buy normal ones. It's like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. They can make mistakes like that, or sometimes, that was a dumb lie. He shouldn't have said that. They will make mistakes, but then people will say, well, you fucked up, and then they'll go to the alternative media landscape. And the reality is, and I will die on this hill to any person, epidemiologist, whoever wants to debate this, virologist, whatever, almost every single conspiracy about the vaccines was dead wrong. The mass injuries never happened. The mass myocarditis, pericarditis, heart problems, the mass death events, all of these things, none of that happened. And everybody that was pushing that, your Tim Pools, your Robert Malones, your all the people that Joe Rogan, all these people that were pushing that, none of this panned out to be true. But nobody looks at them and go, oh, I don't think I'm going to trust that guy anymore because he was wrong about almost everything. They'll look at the one thing that he was like on the outer perimeter kind of right on, like, well, this guy said this and the mainstream missed this. And the standard of proof or like the expectation for being correct is so lopsided that I'm like, no way. It can't be the case that this guy was right about maybe this one thing and now you trust everything he says implicitly when he was wrong about so many other things.
Yeah. And that is the biggest dilemma. Like everyone, and I can't knock Joe Rogan's hustle. Like he's doing his thing, but to go to him for medical health advice when it comes to example, COVID-19, maybe, hey, call me crazy, but maybe we shouldn't listen to him. Maybe we shouldn't listen to the podcaster giving health advice. You wouldn't listen to me for health advice? No, I'm trying to look to the scientists. I'm trying to look for the real doctors, not celebrities, not podcasters. If you ever hear me trying to give you health advice, type in the comments, hey, when did you get your doctorate degree? Because I don't know. So once again, but it's just everything has shifted to celebrities. And whoever has the craziest, wildest thing to say, they're going to get the most attention. And that's why millions of Americans died 4 or 5 years ago. Let's go to the next one here, which is 38. Dang, we are flying through this.
I haven't even gotten into any of these things, but speaking of debate.
Well, here, actually, can I ask you a question? I'm serious.
Yeah.
When you're watching people argue, what do you look for when you're listening to them arguing? Like, what is more convincing to you? Or what do you think?
See, here's my problem. I love it, and people always try to nail me down on politics. I know a lot about politics only because I'm old. I love the game. I love talking to both sides. I love, I believe a lot of it is bread and puppet theater. I believe a lot of this is, because look, I could go on for hours, but anyway, it's not a democracy. It's a republic with two-party system. But both parties are always in power, and there's a lot of money at stake, and the American government is made to do nothing and do it very slowly. And, but there's all of this political brouhaha. And if you look at this electoral cycle, I called it was going to be crazy. I didn't know how crazy. 3 assassination attempts, an incumbent president, saying I'm not going to even run, as well as all the other fucking bull goose loony stuff. I love it.
Okay.
Right. And when people debate, I love to see. I'm really impressed, to go back to Bobby Kennedy, because he reminded me of Tony Blair, in that you believe what they say. You believe that. By the way, it could be total fucking bullshit.
Okay.
But you believe what they say. And look, I do have respect for people who can debate, because it's hard. It's a mental. But this leads me to a question. Do you believe that you can change someone's mind through debate?
And to answer that question, because it's my channel, so I don't per se like debates. Like it's like you said, it's entertaining, to kind of see people kind of just go back and forth and trying to say the craziest thing. Sometimes that's entertaining, but I would rather hear conversations, which I know that sounds like a cliche, but a video that I did with Breonna Joy Gray, and she was talking to Michael Eric Dyson. Like, they were having a really good conversation. Like, I think it was like a 40-minute video, and it was amazing because they challenged each other. But what are you going to get from a debate like Destiny and Ben Shapiro? Just a bunch of like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No. And it starts to sound like talking points and just like things they literally read from this. So they're just regurgitating that and not like talking to each other. To me, like, you miss so much substance just like trying to outdo the other person. And that's what I hate. And if I ever invite anyone to my Discord, to argue, I'm never going to be that debate bro. I might have some facts and, I might have some figures to throw at you, but I'm going to talk to you and be like, hey, how do you feel about this though? This and this and this and this. Tell me. And not like, hey, you're wrong. You're an idiot. Got you. Like, I don't like that. I'm trying to actually learn something when I'm listening to these people talk. So, there you go. I knew you was
absolutely
asking
that. Yeah.
But that's a varied and variable question. It really depends a lot on a lot of things.
On the person as well.
It depends on the person. It depends on their environment. It depends on who you are. It depends on the subject, right? Like, we have debates all the time in our life, arguments that we're trying to convince people of things. It might be, should we do pizza or Chinese tonight, right? You can make arguments for it. It might be like, should we have a child now or in 2 years, or should we buy a house, right? You have arguments with people in your life all the time. The founding fathers wrote under pen names when they were doing the Federalist Papers to try to persuade the American public to join the federal government. So people will say like debating is pointless, arguments are pointless. Like, they're not. Some of it is like for showmanship and some of it is dumb for sure. But that's true of everything. Some things can be stupid and some things can be meaningful. Yeah. One thing that I think people discount a lot is a lot of people's political and social beliefs are held prisoner by the people that they're surrounded with. People don't respect that force enough, right? That I'm a very independent person from my family, from communities, and everything else. I'm my own online politically. So I have the flexibility and freedom. I can have whatever opinion I want. I think that Rittenhouse should have walked. I thought that was totally fair. I think that January 6th was an insurrection. That was insane. I'm a big Second Amendment supporter, and I'm a big First Amendment supporter. Like, there's a lot of opinions that I have, but I have no social pressure on me in terms of like people that would disown me for something, right? But there might be a person where I might make the most compelling argument in the world for why the vaccine was good or the vaccine was bad, but his community, his family, and his friends might have a very strong opinion on that. And if they change their mind on it openly, they might lose that whole community of people. They're never changing their mind on that because
and that's why, at least to me, or at least to a lot of people in 2024, a lot of mainstream media is just like that. If Don Lemon Don Lemon, who was on CNN, if he stepped out of pocket of what CNN as a corporation feels and believes about X, Y, and Z, if he stepped out of pocket at least enough times, he's not going to have a job. I mean, hence, he's not on CNN no more. If he says what he feels, he's not going to have a job at CNN. So how can anyone look at CNN or Fox News and say they are telling me the 100% truth all the time? No, they're a business. They're a corporation, and they have to listen to the higher ups on what to tell the American people. And if they stepped out of script, that's that ass. So why can, and I had to learn that the hard way, watching CNN, like, wait, that's not true. Or they're over exaggerating something, or they're underplaying some things. Like, I can't take what they say as face value. But independent media, which, I mean, a lot of people are now taking big money from billionaires in corporate media. That's kind of the beauty of what I'm doing now. No one's paying me. I can say what I want. I can't say some crazy things because then I get kicked off of YouTube. But generally, what I have to say, I can tell you with no filter and not get in trouble for it. Not get in trouble by groups of this and groups of that. Hey, if you don't like it, you're not going to subscribe to me. That's simple. When it comes to your own political identity, you can't be afraid to speak out on something or stand on something because of what your friends or your family or your business or whatever is going to say. You're literally being that guy that no one likes, so learn how to stand in your business,
It's too much of a risk, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big force that has to be respected sometimes. So when you ask me like, well, how do you persuade some people out of some things? If somebody was like a fundamentalist Muslim in a family of fundamentalist Muslims living in a community of fundamentalist Muslims or any religion, I'm never changing his mind on religion because he would lose everything if he were to acknowledge what I'm saying. Yeah?
Right.
But if we were to debate over like the strongest like Harry Potter character, maybe I could win that debate very easily because who cares?
And that's the same with like a Ben Shapiro or a Candace Owens. Like I come to grips that I'm not going to make an amazing video for Candace to be like, oh damn, maybe I do hate myself. Maybe I am capitalizing off of marginalizing and demonizing my own people. She's never going to openly say something like that because she built her entire career, her entire being that person. So you're never going to hear her say, damn, maybe I was wrong about that. No, she will literally lose her fan base. So I just learned to say what I need to and never expect anything good to come from a person like that.
Dobby,
is it?
Look, I like to have my mind changed or confirmation bias blown out, or I like, for example, I'll give you my one conspiracy theory that I went down the rabbit hole is so I was born in 1969 and moon landing, and I came to it because we did a TV show about the factual thing that these kids were hired to make this TV show and that they went down to make it for NASA, and I think NASA did it, as a fail-safe, and we sort of had found the papers, and so we made this TV show about it anyway. And when I was looking at it, you're like, okay, now China can't do it. They had all their fuck-ups with their moon landing, and India had a problem, and everyone's having these problems. This is 2024. We have supercomputers and stuff. In 1969, we had calculators, and we went, and not only did we land, and then have to go up and get this thing that's circling the moon and then come back. We filmed video and stuff. They can't do it today. They can't send video back today like on a feed. So I got all into it, and I looked at the whole thing and whatever. And I met this guy named Taylor Wilson, who's a very famous physicist, and he's like, look, Shane, like, I've seen the fucking moon rocks, I've did this and that. And he gave me a very sane answer, and like, oh yeah, sorry. And so even though I had convinced myself for years, and I have like 100 different arguments, when somebody's sane and who's like an expert in it goes, look, dude, this is what it is. So I do like to be convinced. I don't know what my point was on that. Just like open
to having your mind changed.
Yeah, I'm open to having my mind changed. And I think in debate, I love to have some. I'll tell you one more story and we'll get into something else. I heard Karl Rove and Rahm Emanuel when they were both respective, heads there. So then how they got involved. And Karl Rove said, I wasn't political in college, but when I came out, the Republicans stay on message and they rally behind each other. So I chose them because they'll stick with it. And so I think, and this here's my question, the Republicans seem better at messaging and debating right now, they're the party, than the Democrats. The Democrats seem to be sort of everywhere and not really on message, whereas the Republicans, even if what they're saying is not true, it doesn't matter, but they stay on message and they hammer it. They have immigration being the perfect example. What do you think of that?
And that's like a superpower. It is hard to get a group of people. It is hard to get my family of 5 of us to agree on one thing to have for dinner if we go out to get something for dinner. It is hard to get everybody to be like, hey, we're going to eat Subway or whatever. Like, to have an entire party, like I said in this video, even if people hate Trump's guts, they won't say that too much in public. We had JD Vance call Trump Hitler, but now he's vice president. So it is crazy how they can fall in line, follow suit, and get things done. But for the Democratic Party, they couldn't do that to save their life, which is some benefits to it, because you're never going to have just one person ruling an entire party without being challenged, which is good. If people challenge Trump on the Republican side, I guarantee it will be a shit show. Like, Trump will look like the idiot he really is. But on the Democratic side, we challenge each other. But we do it so much to where we can't get a person to represent the party and win. Because we're fighting ourselves, fighting our allies, and fighting the Republican Party to where we can't in unison vote for one person. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Debate-wise. Or messaging-wise.
So this is why I'm so unhinged over the past few months, ever since the first Trump assassination attempt, when it comes to dealing with conservatives, is I think that right now conservatives are enjoying a dramatically lower standard expectation of behavior, and that allows them to appear more unified and more coherent on everything they say, because it's basically, as long as they show up and they're not dead, they get like props for making a good argument or doing a good thing. That if I were to, like, people make fun of how Kamala talks, but if I were to give you like a paragraph of basically any Trump answer to any question ever, it's incoherent mumbo jumbo nonsense. But it's like expected, so it's kind of like funny. I don't know if you watched recently. Did you see his interview? I just watched on the plane flying here this morning, actually, with Bloomberg yesterday.
No.
My God. There was that. There are so many interviews that he gives where he doesn't answer anything meaningfully at all, but it's like there's no expectation on that side. So if a Democrat messes something up, everybody will jump on them, but for the Republicans, there's no standard.
Well, everybody jumps on everybody.
Well, but it's so, like, for instance, if I were to point to like objective fact, okay, there has not been ever in the history of the United States a majority party in the House of Representatives that's lost their majority speaker. But the Republicans managed to do it in the past few years when they were the majority party in the House, because they could, because McCarthy was making deals with Democrats or whatever, and then he got kicked, and it's like, what's happening? This is a failure in governance, right? Donald Trump was when it came to governance, couldn't get anything done. He failed on his repeal of the ACA. He couldn't get any major legislation through Congress. He kind of had his tax thing, and everybody in the Republican Party now is either a rhino or they're like, Pledge of Allegiance to Donald Trump full through and through with no questioning whatsoever. And so when you're in that environment, the Democrat Party has become kind of like a bigger tent party where there's a lot of different kind of people or coalitions in there, and the Republican Party is like, it's Donald Trump through and through, so they have so much more leeway on all the things they can say and defend. As long as they're allegiant to Donald Trump, they're good. But then on the Democrat side, you're trying to balance like the Israeli, Palestinian, the Gaza people. You're trying to balance, your black voters, your Latino voters, your minority. You're trying to balance your mainstay, like left wing, like your center left liberals, your unions, your Rust. There's just a lot more that you're kind of like juggling there.
What I'm referencing particularly is, like, right or wrong, and I've had this debate with people. I did a thing on immigration, not that I'm an expert, but, we talked to all the border guards, and we talked to the people on the Homeland panel, we talked to the immigration panel, we talked to everybody. And, the Republican message, which they hit time and time again, they stay on message, and, open borders, and they're letting them in, the criminals and all this stuff. And then you talk to exactly like what you just said. You talk to the other side, and they're like, "Well, it's nuanced, and it's this, and Mexico changed their constitution, so they have to be here, and so we let them out. They all come for their processing, and then the Republicans are like, no, they don't come for the processing. They're letting criminals. It goes to they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, and you're like, okay, like seriously, like there's again there the twain shall meet, but politically, saying, well, it's a nuanced and complex, solution or problem versus pow 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 pow. I mean,
it sounds weak.
It's weak,
and this is an issue that I think the media environment has to change. I think that something happened in 2016, and I remember everybody was asking questions of like, well, how do we cover Trump? Because every day it seems like there's new wacky stuff going on. And eventually what fell out of favor was like pointing out all the things that Trump did wrong, because people would say, Trump derangement syndrome, you guys are biased. And now the media is like obsessed with trying to be fair and balanced, which is stupid because conservatives will never give them credit for it anyway. Such that I thought one of the most ridiculous moments of our democracy was you have the vice presidential debates where you've got Vance versus Walz, and they asked the question of Walz, this hard-hitting question about, 20 years ago when you said you were at in China or for the Tiananmen Square stuff, you were actually there 3 months after, and he answered it, and they sat there and they waited. And then for him to answer even more, and it was like, damn. And then they turned to Vance, and I think the question was like, do you believe in the results of the 2020 election or whatever, or would you certify the vote? And it's like, that's a way more relevant, hard-hitting, but they present these as like the same thing.
Same question.
Yeah, and then this thing happens and I hate all the alternative media that does this too. People do these things like both sides have problems, both sides have problems, both sides have problems. And it's like, bullshit. Both sides might have problems, but you would never, ever, ever say that in an environment where one side is like clearly.
Sorry, what's the harder question? Are you a communist in China, or are you 2020 election? What was the?
Well, the thing for Walz is they were implying that he was trying to get credit for being there during the Tiananmen Square protests when he was actually there 3 months after, and he didn't even really say that. He maybe you argue that, but for Vance denies the outcome of the last election, and he would help Trump steal it if he tried to again. That's a really big deal. I don't give a Walz's answer is whatever. Vance's answer, in my opinion, is disqualifying for candidacy. Like that's it, you're done in politics. How could you even say that?
Exactly.
But everything is presented as similarly because the media doesn't want to seem biased or unfair, and it's like,
So it was biased for.
It's the media is, and again, like
it didn't pause, but that right there, and we could probably end it there. Once again, hopefully I can remember. Editing and posting these videos take a lot of work, so I'm gonna try to remember to post this full video in the description or in the comment section. This is an hour and 26-minute long, so go ahead, knock yourself out and enjoy it. But that to me right there is the conversation in a nutshell. Like I stopped telling people myself that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are two parties on the same coin. That is not true. Once you start getting into the conversation and into, what makes the Republican Party so trash and what makes the Democratic Party so trash, like it easily is like this. Like I can deal with the struggles and just the annoyance of the Democratic Party. I can do that. I feel like we can salvage something out of the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party, holy shit, they are not in no substantive conversation. Are they grounded in any sort of reality, in any sort of facts? I can't deal with that, so we need to stop trying to treat both parties as if they're exactly the same, because they are far between not. You know what I'm saying? And if you guys want to continue that conversation, let me know in the comments down below or hit that Discord link so we can have literally that conversation. That's what this platform is supposed to be about, having those conversations. But let's have that conversation.